If you want your health to improve, your income to rise, your investments to grow, and your value in the marketplace to multiply, then get busy. Learn the second skill, then the third. Pick up the next language, then another. The rich don't wait for conditions to improve. They improve themselves until conditions have no choice but to follow. Wealth is not an accident. It's a result of disciplined growth, relentless learning, and building assets that outlast you. Think rich, act rich, and live for legacy. Start today, because tomorrow only rewards those who prepared yesterday. When people ask me where wealth begins, most of them expect me to say in a paycheck, or in a business, or in an investment. But that's not the truth. Wealth doesn't begin in the wallet, it begins in the mind. Riches are first a thought before they ever become a bank balance. If your thinking doesn't change, your money never will. I've met people who earned more in a month than some do in a year, but they were still broke, still anxious, still trapped. Why? Because their philosophy never shifted. They were still thinking in terms of income instead of value, in terms of chasing dollars instead of becoming a person that dollars are drawn to. See, the marketplace doesn't reward need, it rewards value. You can be desperate for money, you can work long hours, you can sweat every day and still stay broke, because effort without the right mindset just leaves you tired. The secret is to stop asking, how much can I earn? And start asking, how much value can I create? That shift alone can change the entire trajectory of your life. When you stop chasing money and start chasing growth, skills, and contribution, suddenly the money starts showing up. Not as a prize you ran after, but as a natural consequence of who you've become. I remember when I was 25, flat broke, behind on my bills, embarrassed to answer the phone because it was always a collector on the other end. I thought my biggest problem was that I didn't have enough money, but then I met a man who told me, the problem isn't the money, the problem is you. If you change, everything will change. That cut deep, but it was the truth. I had to stop thinking about what I was earning and start thinking about who I was becoming. That was the first time I realized wealth was more about philosophy than paychecks. So I began the process of shifting my mind. Instead of counting dollars, I started counting the ways I could bring value to others. Instead of complaining about opportunities I didn't have, I asked myself what skills I could develop to make myself indispensable. Slowly but surely, my circumstances began to change. Not because I won the lottery or stumbled on a miracle, but because I was building the kind of mindset that attracts opportunities, relationships, and resources. Now, how do you make this practical? Every evening, sit down and write one way you created value for someone that day. Maybe you solved a problem at work. Maybe you helped a friend. Maybe you studied something that will make you sharper tomorrow. It doesn't matter how small. The discipline of recording it will train your mind to focus on value creation instead of just survival. Over time, you'll see a pattern. Days filled with contribution, growth, and service. And let me tell you, the person who spends his days adding value never has to worry about adding income. Wealth is a reflection, not a cause. It reflects your philosophy, your mindset, your daily disciplines. Change the inside, and the outside can't help but follow. That's where it begins, not in the wallet, but in the mind. Most people spend their lives thinking about Friday. They work hard all week, hoping to have just enough left to get them through the weekend, maybe with a little extra for entertainment or comfort. But let me tell you, that kind of thinking traps you. The poor think about Friday, the rich think about 5 years from now. The difference is not in intelligence, it's not even in opportunity, it's in perspective. If all you can see is the end of the week, you'll live your whole life in a cycle of short-term relief and long-term struggle. But if you can lift your eyes and begin to imagine 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, you start to live differently today. When I first started out, I was guilty of the same mistake. My paycheck was gone before the month even ended. I'd spend to catch up, to cover bills, to keep myself entertained, and I thought that was normal. But normal doesn't lead to wealth, and it doesn't lead to peace either. I remember lying awake at night, wondering how I'd cover the next bill, stressed out over every unexpected expense. Then my mentor said something that completely altered my thinking. He said, "You're so busy worrying about next week that you've never stopped to plan for the next decade." And he was right. My short-term habits were stealing my long-term freedom, and because of that, I couldn't even find peace in the moment. The paradox is this: long-term thinking actually creates short-term peace. When you begin to set aside resources for the future, you suddenly stop being afraid of what tomorrow might bring. When you start preparing for 5 years from now, Friday no longer has the same power over you. There's confidence in knowing that you're building something beyond just getting by. Now, the way you apply this is not complicated. Every time you receive income, before you spend a dime, set aside 10 to 20%. Automate it if you can, so it happens without debate or hesitation. Don't wait to see what's left over at the end of the month, because the truth is, there's never anything left. Pay yourself first. Think of it as planting seeds. They may not look like much in the moment, but given time, they grow into trees that provide shade, fruit, and security. At first, I thought I couldn't afford to save. I thought I was barely getting by. But then I realized I couldn't afford not to save, because every dollar I spent was buying me a fleeting pleasure while robbing me of peace. The first time I saw my savings grow, even just a little, I slept better that night. I realized that long-term thinking doesn't only create wealth, it creates calm. It creates the kind of quiet confidence that says, "I'm ready for tomorrow." And that's the truth of it. The poor keep asking, "How do I get through this week?" The wealthy ask, "How do I prepare for the years ahead?" And when you start thinking that way, you discover the secret. The long-term mindset is what makes today finally feel secure. Most people spend their lives chasing success as if it were a butterfly, running faster, working harder, and yet always coming up empty-handed. But success was never meant to be chased. Success is attracted. It flows naturally to the person who becomes worthy of it, not to the one who runs after it in desperation. That's why you'll notice that the wealthiest and most fulfilled people you meet aren't those who are frantic, but those who are steady. They have character, they make a contribution, and they are consistent. Success doesn't resist them, it gravitates toward them. In my early years, I made the mistake of chasing. I thought if I knocked on enough doors, pleaded for enough opportunities, begged hard enough, surely someone would give me a break. But chasing only made me look desperate, and desperation repels opportunity. It wasn't until I realized that the real work was becoming a person of value that my life began to shift. When you invest in yourself, when you build integrity into your character, when you become reliable, dependable, and disciplined, people begin to trust you. They want to work with you. They want to pay you. They want to bring you into their circle. That's attraction, not pursuit. So how do you begin to attract? Start with your philosophy. Ask yourself not, "How can I get more?" but, "How can I become more?" If you want success, you must grow into the kind of person who can handle it. If wealth showed up tomorrow and you weren't prepared, you'd lose it just as quickly. But if you grow into someone who can manage wealth, lead people, solve problems, and stay consistent, then wealth and opportunity won't slip away. They'll find a permanent home with you. The strategy here is simple. Build yourself. Strengthen your character. Contribute to others in meaningful ways. Be consistent with your word and your actions. The world doesn't pay people for wishing, it pays for value. And value comes from the inside out. To make this practical, I suggest something that changed my life. Write a personal mission statement. Define clearly who you want to be, what you want to stand for, and how you want to serve. Then, every day, measure your actions against that mission. If your mission is to bring honesty and excellence into everything you do, then before you go to bed, ask yourself, did I live with honesty today? Did I give my best today? Did I serve someone today? Over time, those daily alignments shape your character. They make you attractive, not in a superficial sense, but in a way that draws opportunities, relationships, and wealth toward you. Remember, you don't chase the butterfly. You build a garden so beautiful that the butterfly chooses to land. And when you become that garden, rich in character, abundant in contribution, unwavering in consistency, success won't run from you. It will come and sit quietly at your side. One of the greatest mistakes people make is letting money become their master. They spend their entire lives chasing it, working for it, worrying about it, and in the process, they hand over their freedom. If you serve money, you'll always be a slave. But if you can learn to make money serve you, then you'll always be free. That's the difference between bondage and liberty, between stress and peace, between just getting by and truly living well. When I was young and broke, I thought the solution was simply to earn more. If I could just make more money, I told myself, my problems would disappear. But every time I earned more, the problems grew right alongside it. Why? Because I had never learned the principle of mastery. I was still serving money, still tied to it emotionally and practically. Then one day, I was taught that money is a terrible master but a wonderful servant. And I realized I had to flip the relationship. Instead of working endlessly for it, I had to put it to work for me. Now, how do you do that? You create systems where money multiplies without your constant effort. That's what investing island, that's what building assets is all about. Money should be put into vehicles that grow on their own. Businesses, real estate, investments, skills that generate income while you sleep. This doesn't happen overnight, but it begins with the decision that money is a tool, not a god. You must decide that it's something to manage, direct, and employ, not something to be enslaved by. One practical way to build this discipline is to follow a simple rule with your income. 7, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, live on 70%. That forces you to keep your lifestyle under control, no matter how much you earn. Then take 10% and use it for learning. Keep investing in yourself, because the best money you'll ever spend is the money that makes you wiser and more skilled. Then take another 10% and put it into investments, assets that grow without your constant attention. And finally, give 10% away. Giving breaks the hold that money tries to have on your heart. It reminds you that you are the master, not the servant, and that money is a tool to create value in the lives of others as well as your own. When I first began to apply this, it wasn't easy. I thought, I can barely live on what I have now. How could I possibly set aside 30%? But the truth is, you start small. Even if it's not the exact percentages, the habit matters more than the amount. Over time, as my income grew, the system kept me balanced. Money no longer dictated my emotions. I wasn't waking up in fear of bills. I wasn't enslaved to my paycheck. Instead, I had a sense of control, of mastery. And here's the lesson. Money is neutral. It takes on the role you assign to it. If you let it master you, it will drive you to exhaustion and fear. But if you master it, if you put it to work with discipline and purpose, it becomes your servant, and with that comes the priceless gift of freedom. They say you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, and I've found that to be true in every part of life: health, happiness, and especially wealth. You rise or fall to the level of the people around you. If you spend your days with those who complain about money, who fear risk, who only dream about Friday night, it won't be long before you find yourself thinking and living the same way. But if you intentionally surround yourself with people who think big, who plan long, who invest wisely, and who challenge you to grow, you cannot help but rise to their level. I can remember in my own life, before I made the shift, I was surrounded by people who reinforced my excuses. They would say, "It's too hard to get ahead," or "Only lucky people get rich." And when you hear that long enough, you start to believe it. You begin to accept mediocrity as normal. Then one day, I got around someone who was living differently, someone whose mindset was disciplined, whose habits were sharp, whose vision was bigger than just surviving the week. And it shocked me. It wasn't just their bank balance that was different, it was their thinking. They looked at the future as an opportunity, not a threat. They saw problems as puzzles to solve, not reasons to quit. Just being in that environment forced me to confront my own limited beliefs, and it woke something up inside me. That's the power of association. Growth is contagious, discipline is contagious, vision is contagious, so is mediocrity, so is laziness, so is small thinking. The choice is yours, which one you want to catch. If you want to become wealthy, then you must choose an environment where wealth is not the exception, but the expectation. The strategy is simple but not easy. Build an environment of mentors, peers, and thinkers who challenge your growth. Seek out people who make you feel a little uncomfortable with your current level, because that discomfort is a signal that you're being stretched. Don't just look for friends who agree with you. Find people who will question your excuses and call you to higher standards. And to make this practical, I'll give you one clear step. Before this month ends, join one mastermind, attend one seminar, or commit to one online community that focuses on wealth creation and personal growth. It doesn't matter if it's local or global, big or small, paid or free. What matters is that you put yourself in an environment where the conversations lift you, where the mindset challenges you, and where the examples inspire you. I can promise you this: one conversation with the right person can change the entire direction of your life. One challenge from a mentor can unlock potential you didn't know you had. One room full of people thinking bigger can raise your standard forever. And if you surround yourself with millionaire minds long enough, sooner or later, you'll find yourself thinking and living like one. When most people think about wealth, they imagine big houses, fancy cars, and accounts that grow larger each year. But let me tell you, true wealth is not measured by what you leave in the bank. It's measured by what you leave in people. The legacy you create is far more powerful than any balance sheet. It's in the lessons you pass on, the habits you model, the principles you live by, and the mindset you instill in those who come after you. Money fades, assets can be lost, but the wisdom and character you leave behind can last generations. I remember early in my journey, I focused entirely on earning, saving, and investing. I chased numbers, thinking that once I reached a certain threshold, everything else would fall into place. But as the years went by, I noticed a pattern. People around me, my family, friends, and even younger colleagues were learning more from the way I handled challenges, setbacks, and successes than from any financial figures I could show them. That's when I realized, if my life was going to have true meaning, I needed to build a legacy, not just a portfolio. So how do you do it? First, you think long-term in terms of people, not just possessions. Focus on building principles and habits that your children, your employees, or your community can observe and emulate. Simple things, like showing discipline in saving, integrity in decision-making, and generosity in giving, communicate lessons far deeper than words ever could. Second, document it. Don't rely on memory. Start writing down your financial decisions, your reasoning, the successes, the mistakes, and the lessons learned. Keep a journal or a ledger that one day can serve as a roadmap for those who follow. I've seen families transformed by this practice. One man, who started keeping detailed notes on his investments and daily financial habits, not only improved his own wealth, but also taught his children how to manage money responsibly. By the time he passed, his children were already equipped to make wise choices, avoiding pitfalls he once faced. That is the power of thinking in legacy. Remember, wealth without legacy is fleeting, but wealth with legacy multiplies infinitely. Start documenting, start teaching, start living in a way that what you leave behind shapes the next generation. Because true riches are measured not by what you own, but by the lives you influence and the principles you leave behind. If you want to increase your wealth, you must first increase yourself. I've always believed that income rarely exceeds personal development. In other words, the person you are today sets the ceiling for the money you can earn tomorrow. I remember when I first started out, I thought earning more meant finding a better job or a higher paying opportunity. But the truth hit me slowly. I couldn't earn what I didn't understand. I couldn't create opportunities I wasn't prepared for. My mind, my skills, and my habits were the real limiting factors. That realization changed everything. I began investing in myself the way others invest in stocks or real estate. Books became my daily companions. I sought mentors whose wisdom was priceless, and I attended seminars that stretched my thinking beyond what I believed possible. Every hour I spent learning returned itself tenfold in confidence, ideas, and opportunities. One simple rule became my mantra: grow yourself, and your wealth will follow. The strategy is simple, yet it requires consistency. Knowledge compounds like money, and the more you learn, the more doors open. Every skill you acquire, every insight you gain, every connection you cultivate through learning adds value to who you are and multiplies the opportunities available to you. For example, learning a new financial principle might save you thousands. Mastering leadership skills might double the productivity of your team, and understanding a new technology might create an entirely new income stream. Growth in yourself directly translates into growth in your finances. Here's the practical step. Dedicate 30 minutes every single day to learning something that elevates your earning potential and personal value. Read a book on investing, take a course on negotiation, listen to a mentor talk about leadership, or even practice a skill that adds marketable value. Do it daily, without excuses. Over time, these small, consistent actions compound into expertise, opportunity, and income that far exceeds what luck or chance could ever give you. Remember, wealth is not just about money, it's about who you become in the process. Build your mind first, and the income will follow naturally. Let me tell you something important. Wealth doesn't appear by accident. Money flows toward those who solve problems. It's a principle as old as commerce itself, and yet most people ignore it. I've seen it countless times in my own life and in the lives of people I've mentored. The person who complains about traffic doesn't get rich. The person who creates a better route, a navigation system, or a service that solves that frustration finds opportunity. The person who struggles with managing time doesn't get wealthy. The person who designs a system or tool to manage time efficiently attracts money naturally. Problems are not obstacles. They are signals pointing toward opportunity. The strategy is simple but profound. Instead of wishing life were easier, study life as it is and find where value is missing. Look at the frustrations around you, not as nuisances, but as openings for innovation. Every inconvenience, every inefficiency, every dissatisfaction is a chance to create something meaningful that others will pay for. The richer you become in your ability to see problems and envision solutions, the richer your life financially will become. I remember when I first understood this principle. I was broke, struggling to make ends meet, and yet I realized that the world was full of unmet needs. I started thinking, not about how to get rich fast, but about how to make something or teach something that would improve someone else's life. That shift in perspective changed my trajectory completely. Here's the practical step. Take a notebook right now and write down 5 recurring problems. Anything, no matter how small, either in your life, in your workplace, or in your community. Then, brainstorm at least one product, service, or solution for each problem. Don't judge the ideas yet. Let your mind stretch, because even one viable solution can become a source of income, a stream of value, and a foundation for wealth. Then take one of those ideas and test it. Start small. Start practical. It doesn't have to be perfect. It has to begin. The key is to understand that money is not a reward for wishing or complaining. It's a reward for action, for problem solving, and for service. When you focus on solving problems, you're no longer chasing money. Money begins to chase you. And that, my friend, is the difference between working for money and having money work for you. Imagine waking up one morning and realizing that every dollar you've ever earned could be replaced, but the hours you've spent cannot. Time is the true currency, far more precious than money, and yet so many people treat it carelessly. I've watched people toil endlessly, chasing paychecks, believing that money is the measure of success, only to discover in their later years that they traded their freedom, their creativity, and their joy for fleeting numbers on a ledger. Money lost can always be regained, but time once gone is irretrievable. And that is the lesson that shapes true wealth. When I speak of valuing time over money, I mean making deliberate choices every day about how you spend your hours. Wealthy people understand this instinctively. They do not clutter their lives with tasks that do not move them closer to their goals. They focus on high-value activities, on the work that matters, on building themselves, their skills, and their legacy. The moment you recognize that your time is the most non-renewable asset you have, you begin to treat each hour with respect. Each day becomes an opportunity to grow, to learn, to earn, and to serve in ways that money alone cannot quantify. The strategy is simple yet profound. Swap tasks that consume time but produce little value for those that create results. Think about your week and ask yourself, which actions are draining my time without giving me returns? Financial, personal, or spiritual? It could be endless scrolling through social media, attending meetings that add no insight, or trying to do everything yourself instead of leveraging tools or people. Once identified, take immediate action to delegate, automate, or eliminate them. Even small changes compound dramatically over months and years. I remember early in my career, I was caught up in trying to handle every detail of my work, believing that only I could manage it perfectly. I was busy but not productive. Then I shifted my mindset. I asked myself which activities were truly wealth-generating and which were merely time-consuming. I began outsourcing repetitive tasks, using systems to automate, and focusing my energy on growth, mentorship, and value creation. The results were astounding. Not only did my income rise, but my creativity, energy, and freedom expanded far beyond what I thought possible. The practical step is actionable immediately. This week, identify one task that steals your time without adding meaningful value and decide how to handle it differently. Delegate it to someone capable, automate it with technology, or remove it entirely. Record the hours you reclaim and observe the impact on your productivity and mindset. This practice transforms your relationship with time and, in turn, your relationship with wealth. Understand this: your wealth is not measured solely by dollars in the bank, but by your ability to spend time meaningfully, creating value and opportunities for yourself and others. When you respect time above money, everything else aligns, productivity increases, decisions improve, and wealth flows naturally as a byproduct of your disciplined life. Start today, for time waits for no one. Let me tell you something that many people don't understand. Wealth is not about being busy, it's about being valuable. Too often, people trade their hours for dollars, believing that time alone determines income. They say, I'm available, I'll take anything that comes my way, but that mindset keeps them trapped. People don't pay for time, they pay for value. If you want to rise above the ordinary, if you want to create lasting wealth, you must become someone whose skills, insight, and expertise are sought after. The market will chase you only when you are rare and useful. The philosophy is simple but powerful. Your income is directly proportional to the value you bring to others. If your knowledge, your skills, or your services are ordinary, your compensation will remain ordinary. But if you specialize in something that solves a pressing problem, something that few can do as well as you, then scarcity creates demand. I've seen it countless times. Early in my career, I was just another voice in the crowd, working long hours with minimal returns. Then I made a decision to invest in myself, to study the principles of business, leadership, and personal development until I could offer insights that others could not. Suddenly, I wasn't available, I was valuable, and opportunities began to find me instead of the other way around. The strategy is to stop trying to do everything and start doing what matters most. Identify the skill, the expertise, or the niche where you can excel, then commit to it fully. Don't spread yourself thin chasing multiple paths. Focus on mastering one area so deeply that people say, I need that. I need them. Excellence becomes your calling card. When you become the person who consistently produces results that others cannot, wealth naturally follows. It is not chasing, it is attraction. Here's the practical step. Pick one niche skill in your field and dedicate 90 days to mastering it. Break it into daily practices, measurable milestones, and deliberate learning. Study mentors, read books, practice relentlessly, seek feedback, refine, and repeat. Every day, ask yourself, am I getting better? Am I becoming the person people can't ignore? By the end of those 90 days, you will notice a shift. People will seek your expertise. Doors will open because your value commands attention. Remember, being busy is not the path to wealth. Being valuable island, invest in yourself until you are the one who sets the standard, solves the problem, and earns what you deserve. Your time is precious. Your skill is your leverage, and your value is your currency. Focus on that, and wealth will follow. Let me take a moment to share something most people never truly grasp about wealth and success. Working harder alone does not guarantee financial freedom. Many are trapped in a mindset that equates effort with results, believing that the more hours they put in, the more money they will earn. But here's the truth that changes everything. Effort has limits, but leverage multiplies results infinitely. Time is finite. Energy is finite. And if you rely solely on yourself, no amount of working harder will break through the ceiling of what you can achieve. Wealth is never built by labor alone. It is built by multiplying outcomes through leverage. Leverage is the invisible force that separates those who live paycheck to paycheck from those who build lasting financial freedom. It is the difference between struggling endlessly and creating a life of abundance. The philosophy behind leverage is simple but profound. Wealthy people understand that their personal effort is valuable, but they also recognize that their potential expands when combined with systems, tools, and other people. They don't just work harder, they work smarter. They create processes that produce results even when they aren't physically present. They delegate, automate, and empower others to act on their behalf. A small team, a well-designed process, or the right system can produce 10 times the output of one person working alone. I've lived this principle in my own life. In the early days, I hustled, taking every opportunity, running myself ragged, and giving all my energy to manual tasks. I worked from dawn to dusk, yet my income plateaued and my growth was limited. It was exhausting, frustrating, and ultimately unsustainable. Then I began applying leverage. I started delegating tasks, mentoring others, creating systems, and using tools to manage repetitive work. Suddenly, my efforts were amplified. My reach expanded. I was no longer trading hours for dollars. I was creating results that I could never have achieved alone. The strategy is straightforward. Identify areas in your life where your time is being consumed but not multiplied. Look at repetitive tasks, predictable processes, or activities that drain your energy without generating significant returns. These are prime opportunities for leverage. Leverage can come in many forms. It could be hiring someone to handle administrative tasks, automating your finances, implementing software to manage clients, or creating templates for repetitive work. It could also be building systems for content creation, sales, or marketing, allowing the work to continue even when you are focused elsewhere. Every single task you free through leverage becomes a new opportunity to focus on high-value actions, activities that directly grow your income, influence, and impact. Think about this practically. Pick one task you perform weekly that consumes time but doesn't require your unique skills. Ask yourself, how can I create a system, template, or tool that allows this to happen without my constant involvement? It could be as simple as automating invoice generation, scheduling social media posts, delegating customer service to a trusted team member, or creating a checklist that others can follow to execute tasks reliably. The goal is to set it up once and let it work repeatedly. Leverage multiplies your effort. 1 hour invested in building a system can save 10, 20, or even 50 hours in the future. It is a force that compounds, just like money when invested wisely. But leverage is not just about saving time. It is about amplifying impact and income. Imagine if every task you delegated freed you to focus on your highest priorities: creating, innovating, mentoring, and building assets. This is how small businesses scale, how investors grow portfolios, and how true entrepreneurs build legacies. Leverage allows you to focus on activities that matter most, where your skills and creativity generate the highest returns. Without it, you remain trapped in the endless cycle of labor, exhausted and frustrated, producing results only in proportion to the hours you work. The practical step is simple, yet transformative. Look at one recurring task you do weekly and create a system to automate or delegate it. Document the process, train someone, or implement technology. Commit to making that system reliable so it runs without constant intervention. This is how ordinary effort becomes extraordinary results. Over time, repeated applications of leverage across your life multiply your productivity, income, and freedom. You are no longer a servant to your schedule. Instead, you become the architect of systems that produce wealth and impact while you focus on vision, strategy, and growth. Remember, labor has limits. Hours are finite, and effort alone cannot sustain exponential growth. But leverage, smart, intentional, disciplined leverage, creates an exponential trajectory. It is the force multiplier that takes you from working for money to having money work for you, from scarcity to abundance, from limitation to freedom. When you embrace leverage, you free yourself to focus on high-value activities, grow your influence, and create wealth that endures. Build your systems, empower others, automate intelligently, and multiply your results. This is the path to financial freedom, the path to a life of impact, and the path to leaving a legacy that lasts long after the hours of your labor are done. Let's take a moment to step back and reflect on everything we've discussed today. Wealth is not just a number in your bank account, nor is success a title or a paycheck. True wealth is the result of philosophy, discipline, and consistent action. It is the product of how you think, how you act, and how you structure your life to multiply your results. The most critical lesson is that financial freedom, impact, and legacy are not given. They are earned through deliberate decisions, smart strategies, and the relentless pursuit of personal growth. Think about your mind for a moment. It is the soil in which wealth is planted. If the soil is shallow, rocky, or neglected, nothing lasting can grow. But if you nurture your mind with ideas, principles, and strategies for growth, wealth becomes a natural outcome. That is why every step we discussed, from creating value to mastering leverage, begins with your mindset. The world will only pay you in proportion to what you bring to it. So, start by asking yourself, am I becoming more valuable today than I was yesterday? Am I investing in knowledge, skills, and relationships that expand my influence and my ability to contribute? Wealth is attracted to the person who is constantly improving, learning, and evolving. Now consider time and discipline. Time is the one resource we cannot reclaim once it is gone, and discipline is the tool that ensures every moment counts. You cannot out-earn bad habits or sloppy planning. Every choice you make, every hour you spend, either builds your financial future or erodes it. Begin with small, consistent actions. Start tracking your spending. Save and invest before you spend, and dedicate time to learning new skills or building assets. Small, daily disciplines compound into extraordinary results over months and years. I have seen it in my life and in the lives of countless others. Those who master the basics consistently outperform those who chase big wins sporadically. Let's talk about leverage. You cannot and should not do everything alone. Wealth is multiplied when you harness systems, processes, and other people's expertise. Identify tasks you can delegate, automate, or systematize. Free your energy for high-value work. Build assets that generate income without constant intervention. Leverage creates freedom, amplifies results, and gives you the space to think, create, and innovate. It is the force multiplier that separates those trapped in the grind from those building lasting legacies. Equally important is your environment. Surround yourself with people who elevate you, challenge you, and expand your thinking. The people you spend the most time with either inspire growth or reinforce limitation. Seek mentors, communities, and networks where wealth, character, and contribution are celebrated. Immerse yourself in ideas, discussions, and relationships that push you to act and think bigger. But don't forget legacy. Wealth is more than money. It is the principles, habits, and examples you leave behind. Build a life that teaches others responsibility, vision, and resilience. Document your financial lessons. Share your knowledge and invest not only in yourself, but in others. True wealth endures when it creates lasting impact. Now, here's the call to action. Take what you've learned today and put it into motion. Pick one key area: mindset, discipline, leverage, learning, or environment, and take deliberate action this week. Track your progress. Create systems. Allocate time, money, and energy toward building value, not just chasing money. Invest in skills, build assets, and design habits that compound results over time. Don't wait for perfect conditions. Start where you are with what you have. Consistency is more powerful than intensity. Reflect honestly on where you stand today and decide what kind of life you want to create. Ask yourself, am I becoming the person who naturally attracts wealth, opportunity, and influence? Am I creating value that matters? Am I leaving a legacy that will outlive me? Then commit to taking action, because knowledge without action is wasted, but knowledge paired with consistent, focused effort becomes unstoppable. Remember, success is not an event, a number, or a distant dream. It is a process, a philosophy, and a lifestyle. Every choice you make today, how you think, how you act, how you structure your time and resources, shapes the life you will live tomorrow. Begin now. Be consistent. Focus on value, discipline, leverage, and legacy. Build yourself first, build your assets second, and the wealth and freedom you desire will naturally follow. The power to transform your financial future and create a lasting legacy is in your hands. Start today.